So if you're looking for a puppy, first of all, a huge congratulations. We personally know how exciting this time is and the anticipation of having that high level of just fun and excitement coming into your household. What we want to share with you are some tips and hints about how you can find a puppy who comes from a home who really, really cares about your puppy and wants to do the best thing and set them up for success. So first of all, just to step back a little, there are 3 types of breeders, just to make it really general, when it comes to volume. Breeders who are doing 1 to 2 litters a year, that would be the small breeders. Breeders who are now at like maybe 2 to 3 litters a year, we'll call those medium-sized breeders. And then large volume breeders who are at 3 or more litters a year. So when you're looking out for your breeders, just start thinking about that already. Like you might want to eliminate the large volume breeders from the beginning, because once you get to that level of number of puppies coming in, you can't really do that concentrated care that will be needed to really optimize your puppy's upbringing and hopefully their future life. The next thing to look at is how they're raised once the puppy is born. So are they raised entirely in a house? And we would say this would be pretty mandatory for any puppy that we want to bring into our household, because we're setting up a puppy for adventure, for getting out and about. We want the puppy to feel confident with strangers, both other dogs and other people. So we really want their first impressions to be in a house. The second type of puppy breeder might be raising a puppy, maybe they're born in a kennel, and then after they're weaned from their mom, then they bring the puppy into the house. The problem with this model is that the puppies don't get to observe how the mom acts in the house. So they don't sort of see this rhythm of somebody bringing them food, and where does the food come from, and hearing kitchen noises and everything. And then also being able to observe their mother and say, hey, my mom is cool with this. My mom enjoys this. So when the puppies are not brought into the household until later, that's a little bit of a red flag that we would recommend that you would look elsewhere, because that just doesn't give the puppy the opportunity to feed off what their mother is thinking. The third type of breeder that we definitely would not recommend is a breeder whose puppies are raised outside in kennels. Because again, the moms are probably a little more stressed because it's going to be a high volume breeder, or a breeder where people aren't that very hands-on. And also, you don't know what's going on, during that time period. Like, are other adults coming in? Like, is the mom stressed out and not handling the upbringing that well? There's just too many variables where you can't make sure that the puppies are comfortable and feeling safe when they're away from where you're living. And then when we talk about this puppy raising, the final thing to think about is how they're raising the puppies. So some buzzwords that you might want to look for and make sure that they're actually happening, because these things cannot happen if the puppies are not raised in a house. So one is called puppy culture. This is an amazing program that has a step-by-step approach to how you will handle the puppies, like physically, what you might want to have in their environment to help them feel comfortable about different sounds and sights, what textures they want to be experiencing. So are they walking on different textures, such as something that crinkles, and seeing their mom and their litter mates doing this and having a lot of fun? Are they walking on something that is a different temperature, and how does everybody feel about that in their family? Something else you might see is something called temperament testing. This approach isn't necessarily needed anymore, and the testing itself can be rather stressful or almost too stressful for puppies. So if you see that, just look into the test that they're using and look at the big picture and make your assessment that way. Because if it's only temperament testing and they aren't doing puppy culture and they aren't rearing the puppies in the house, I would say, again, that's another red flag. And then also you want to look into the socialization plan. So are they giving the puppies access to friendly children, not pushy children who, grab them and hold them and squeeze them, which will probably make these puppies scared of children in the future, but children who know the boundaries with puppies and let the puppies approach them instead of approaching the puppies. Are the puppies walking around outside and experiencing other animals? Are there cats in the house? If you have cats yourself, it might be great to have a breeder who has exposed your puppy to cats. If you live on a farm or have any outdoor animals, has this puppy had exposure to chickens and cows and horses or sheep or goats, depending on what you're interested in or where you plan to bring your puppy? If you have chickens, it probably would be a good idea that your puppy was exposed to chickens before they were too large, because chickens will most likely chase off your puppy, so they don't develop a chasing relationship with chickens at that early age, and hopefully that could carry through until adulthood. So just think about finding a breeder that has an upbringing program similar to the exposures that you want your puppy to be comfortable with. Now, that's the best breeder. There are some breeders out there that do some of this, but again, if the puppies are not in the household and they're out in a kennel somewhere, it's really, really hard for them to live this life that you want to bring them into. And then finally, the biggest red flag is if the breeders don't do any socialization. So they basically say, oh, they live with these other dogs, but the people aren't overseeing the interactions, because especially adolescent dogs can be bullies towards the puppies. And if the puppies are starting to just feel threatened when other dogs come up instead of like happy and excited, that could carry into adulthood. Now, one more thing to look into is, are they health testing the parents? This, again, is a mandatory in our world, because health testing is something that you just do once at a certain age. It's not something that is an ongoing cost, and it should be a no-brainer. And it does make us rather upset to see breeders breeding dogs without the health testing. Now, what does the health testing mean? That means that the breeder is testing the hips, they're testing the elbows, they're testing the eyes, they're trying to see if this dog is carrying any of the genetic problems that this particular breed might have. They might also be testing the heart, especially in certain breeds that might have heart issues that could be easily taken care of if there's genetic testing that allows the breeders to make sure they are weeding out the dogs who carry those genes and ensuring that the dogs who are breeding are only the ones who don't carry those genes. One other resource to look at for understanding health requirements and screening in each individual breed is the Canine Health Information Center. This is found on the OFA website, and it basically gives recommended screenings by breed. The Canine Health Information Center is not a place that says you need to have this level of testing completed with this result before you're listed here. Rather, it says, can you please test for these health issues? And if you do, you can be part of this program. So again, it's up to you personally to be looking at these results and deciding what's acceptable for your future puppy. When breeders have the hips tested in dogs, this is looking for hip dysplasia, among other things. Hip dysplasia is something that is really devastating for dogs because it is uncomfortable, it can be painful, and the dogs never really feel like their hind end and their hips are strong and dependable. There's always like this little extra movement. And it's literally because the bone that fits into the hip socket isn't tightly in there. There's some space and some looseness. And this is genetic. It's something that could be caused by some trauma to the hind end, but it can be pretty much taken care of if the parents do not carry this or do not have it themselves. There are a couple different tests for hip dysplasia. One is an OFA test, and this is the Orthopedic Foundation of America. And the other is something called PenHip. What we've noticed, and again, it's important for you to talk to your breeders because there might be some different information out there, but we have found that if breeders are using the PenHip approach, so it's PENNHIP, the testing is supposedly, and from everything that we've seen, again, we're just trainers, we're not veterinarians, but the testing seems to be more robust than the OFA testing. What you want to look at are the numbers. So with the PenHip, you want to see numbers of, I think it's approximately 0.3 and less to show that the dog has really good, high quality, genetics for not passing on the hip dysplasia. In the OFA, the ratings go from excellent down to fair, and then they have a subset for dogs who actually have dysplasia and some rankings within that section. So having this knowledge about the strength of the parent's hips will really, really help you pinpoint the breeders who are focused on health and longevity. And we have seen, believe it or not, dogs that are totally, open for breeding. The people are doing multiple litters, and the rating from OFA is fair for the hips. So again, you just don't want to do that to your puppy. Give them the best chance they have at leading a really active, healthy life by looking at those numbers or, again, that rating. With elbows, they're looking at elbow dysplasia. So again, looking for ratings of excellent or clear of any dysplasia, depending on the testing organization. And then again, look at your breed that you're interested in or your mix of breeds to see what the common diseases or genetic issues could be, and make sure those parents have been tested clear. The next thing to look at and pay attention to is whether or not the parents are registered with any breed-specific organization. So what is most important is a breed organization that registers dogs with the sole intent to make sure that the offspring are healthy and have longevity, so free of any kind of genetic illnesses that might shorten their lives. There are organizations that are more focused on coat color, coat length, and how a dog looks from the outside. So if you see registration, that is not an indication that the dog is healthy and coming from healthy parents. There is not a requirement that the dogs are tested for hips and have an excellent rating. So again, don't get caught up in that type of registration, and make sure to go back and see, what does this registration mean? So I hope this gives you the tools to navigate through the world of finding your new best friend.